You're a Scrum Master, and you're navigating the daily grind, striving to do what's right, enforcing the rules, keeping things on track. But then you catch a whisper, a subtle shift in tone, or perhaps a direct comment. People are starting to call you the Scrum Police, maybe a Taskmaster. You feel misunderstood. You believe you're just trying to help everyone truly get it, to embrace this framework. But your efforts, they're landing all wrong. What if the most powerful, most profound shift you could make to transform that perception and truly unlock your team's potential starts not with them, not with a new tool or process, but with a subtle yet profound change in you? This deep dive will explore precisely that, how to become a truly effective Scrum Master, one who genuinely enables and inspires rather than simply polices. Welcome to another deep dive in the series, Implementing Scrum Unscripted by Michael Vizdos. Goes away. For over 30 years, Michael has been immersed in the professional world, tirelessly working with diverse clients and teams across more than 60 countries. He's been a certified Scrum trainer since 2006. He's the force behind Implementing Scrum.com, those famous chicken and pig cartoons you might have seen. And he's even curated the Scrum Guide audiobook and created an interactive Scrum Guide, all available for free. His approach isn't just theory, it's deeply rooted in real-world product development. Comment section.
And as the voices of this AI-powered deep dive series, which Michael continues to test and hone using Notebook LM, we just want to reiterate that Michael only uses resources he has either personally written or vetted and trusts for each deep dive. Any errors are his, not ours.
Wahoo.
It has not seemed to happen yet, but yeah. Your hosts for this series created this entire conversation via AI using sources provided by Michael.
So, to our listener who posed this challenge directly to us, people keep telling me the Scrum Master is just a Taskmaster, and the Scrum Police telling them they're doing it wrong. Well, I am the Scrum Master, and I do those things because I think that's what I need to do to help people get it. How can I make changes, starting with me maybe, to become an effective Scrum Master who is not a Taskmaster or perceived as the Scrum Police? Please don't explain Scrum to me. I know it already. You know Scrum deeply, and you're ready for a fundamental change in your approach. We hear you loud and clear.
Okay, let's unpack this and provide you with some actionable insights. The one key takeaway for you to #deliver from this deep dive is this. The most impactful shift for a Scrum Master, moving beyond being perceived as Scrum Police, is cultivating specific behaviors and mindsets that truly empower your team to solve their own problems and consistently deliver measurable value. To explore this, we'll dive into 4 critical areas that kind of build on each other. First, redefining the Scrum Master's core stance, moving from enforcer to enabler. Second, navigating essential team dynamics through guidance, not control. Third, empowering your team through fostering true autonomy and tangible value creation. And finally, how to effectively manage external pressures while driving continuous, self-sustaining improvement.
And if you find yourself wanting a refresher on the foundational details of Scrum itself, maybe just to reinforce the basics, remember to check out episode 1 of this series for that deep dive. It provides a really comprehensive overview for anyone new or returning to the framework. 1. Redefining the Scrum Master's stance, from police to partner. So you mentioned feeling like the Scrum Police or a Taskmaster, and yeah, this is a common trap. Michael Vizdos often highlights how this perception frequently arises from what he calls lipstick on a pig anti-patterns, essentially applying Scrum terms and rituals to old habits without any real fundamental change in mindset or behavior. It's kind of like painting over deep cracks in a foundation instead of actually fixing the structural issues beneath. So what does this truly look like in practice? How can you spot it?
That's a critical point. Lipstick on a pig isn't just a metaphor. It shows up in very real ways. For instance, think about the daily Scrum. So many teams rename their traditional daily status meeting a daily Scrum, but fundamentally keep it as that dreaded individual report out to the manager. The Scrum Guide actually removed those 3 legacy questions. What did you do yesterday? What will you do today? What's in your way? Partly because they often just turned into these individual status reports, which isn't the point. A true daily Scrum, it's a quick collaborative synchronization for the team, focused on progress toward the sprint goal and identifying impediments, not updating a manager.
Okay, so it's about the purpose changing, not just the name.
Exactly. And another example, replacing valuable, nuanced conversations and genuine collaboration with just a flurry of Jira or Trello tickets. Now, tools are important, obviously, but over-reliance can strip away vital context and understanding between team members. It turns interactions into just ticket updates rather than rich dialogue.
I see that. It becomes mechanical.
It does, and maybe the most damaging. Teams might perform all the Scrum ceremonies, demonstrate immense work and effort during a sprint review, but consistently fail to provide actual, valuable working software or a tangible product increment that stakeholders can truly use and give feedback on, it's about showing busyness without delivering real outcomes. And as the Scrum Master, if you're pushing rituals without fostering that underlying purpose, well, you inadvertently become the police of the ritual, not the enabler of value.
That makes perfect sense. So if lipstick on a pig is the problem, Michael emphasizes one crucial word as the real-world change agent, the antidote: conversations. This isn't just talking more, right? It means having ongoing, rich dialogue with your team and stakeholders to create deep context and genuine buy-in, rather than just mechanically ticking boxes. It's that difference between just presenting info and really engaging with it, building that shared understanding. But how do you, as a Scrum Master, actively facilitate these conversations to shift things?
Well, it truly begins with intentional facilitation. Think about the daily Scrum again. Instead of asking for individual status updates, pivot your questions to focus on the sprint goal. Ask, what's holding us back from achieving our sprint goal today? Or how can we, as a team, swarm on this impediment? See how that shifts the conversation from individual reporting to collective problem solving.
Yes, about we, not you.
Precisely. And during sprint reviews, facilitate discussions where the entire Scrum team, product owner, developers, everyone engages stakeholders in transparent dialogue about progress towards the product goal. Make sure everyone understands the why behind what's being built. It's not just showcasing features, it's about getting feedback on a functional increment. And maybe most powerfully, in the sprint retrospective, foster a conversation about how to amplify the good that happened. What went well? What successes can we build on? Rather than solely focusing on negatives or letting it become a blame session, that builds positive momentum and trust.
That focus on amplifying the good feels really important for changing the dynamic.
It is. Alex, a Scrum Master Michael recently worked with, she shifted her daily Scrum approach. Instead of, what did you do? She started asking, what did we learn yesterday that helps us with our sprint goal today? Just that simple rephrasing. It transformed the energy from reporting to collaborative problem solving. The team felt less policed, more empowered.
Those are really concrete examples. So shifting the conversational focus is key. Another powerful way to solidify this change, to really move away from that police perception, is by genuinely embodying the Scrum values: focus, openness, respect, commitment, and what Michael calls extreme courage. These aren't just buzzwords or posters on a wall, are they? They're the bedrock for true collaborative work and effective self-management. But what does it really mean for a Scrum Master to embody extreme courage? And why is that so vital for enabling a team instead of policing it?
When we talk about embodying these values, especially extreme courage, it really is about leading by example, particularly in challenging situations. Michael often points out that without trust, none of this works. Now, trust isn't explicitly listed as a Scrum value, but it's undeniably foundational. Extreme courage, for instance, is vital because sometimes it takes immense bravery, especially for maybe more introverted tech professionals, to simply share an opinion or to bring up a difficult truth about technical debt or maybe admit a mistake in front of the team or stakeholders.
Right. It takes courage for a developer to say, I'm stuck, or a product owner to admit, hey, our assumption here was wrong.
Exactly. And for you, the Scrum Master, it means having the courage to challenge organizational impediments, to protect your team from external distractions that derail focus. And sometimes holding up a mirror to the team when they're not living the values themselves, but doing it without judgment or policing. It's the courage to be vulnerable yourself, to facilitate those uncomfortable but necessary conversations, and crucially, to allow the team to fail fast and learn. If there's no underlying trust fostered by this courage, transparency just disappears, and the team starts playing it safe, which completely hinders adaptation.
Speaking of Scrum team members, the Scrum Guide now refers to them as Accountabilities developers, product owner, and Scrum Master, not roles.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't just semantics, is it? For you, the Scrum Master battling that Taskmaster perception, why does truly embracing this distinction fundamentally shift your internal mindset and maybe how others see you? What's the subtle shift in focus Michael emphasizes?
That's an excellent question because this shift from roles to accountabilities is actually quite profound. It emphasizes that the entire team is collectively accountable for the outcome, the sprint goal, the delivery of a valuable increment, not just individuals responsible for parts of a job description. It's not about a title. It's about understanding what each person is accountable for to the Scrum team as a whole, contributing to that valuable increment.
So for the Scrum Master, the focus shifts.
Right. Your focus shifts from managing individual roles or tasks to enabling the entire team to fulfill their collective accountabilities. You're no longer policing specific duties, but you're fostering an environment where that shared accountability can actually thrive. And what's particularly fascinating, and something Michael strongly warns in Scrum Master accountabilities, he states flat out he has never seen it work successfully in all his years of experience.
Wow, never.
Never successfully. Holly, a participant in Michael's training, shared her direct, quite painful experience with this specific anti-pattern. She reflected, I felt like the team trust just in my guidance as either one of those. It degraded both of my ability to do either of those roles, to the point where I was just became command and control of the team. Now, her team did deliver the product, but she said, not in a way I preferred, and we certainly didn't have the best success that we could have had. It just vividly highlights that inherent conflict of interest. You can't effectively serve both distinct accountabilities without eventually reverting to a command and control Scrum Police style.
So if the product owner and Scrum Master accountabilities are distinct and the team is collectively accountable, then as a Scrum Master, your job isn't to be the helicopter parent hovering over every task or dictating solutions. It's about allowing the team to figure out the solution to the problem so that they can deliver without your input. That means stepping back from being a taskmaster, truly trusting the team's capabilities and enabling genuine problem solving.
Okay, this sounds liberating, but also maybe a bit challenging. How do you strike that balance without feeling like you're just abdicating responsibility?
It is a delicate balance, absolutely. And it requires a profound shift towards trust in the team's collective intelligence. Instead of providing the answers, you provide the framework, the constraints maybe, and crucially, the safety for them to find their own solutions. This means asking powerful, open-ended questions, things like, what options have you considered for this technical challenge? Or what's the riskiest assumption we're making here, and how could we test it quickly? You're guiding their thinking, not dictating the path.
So someone asks you how to solve something. Yeah, if a team member asks you how to solve a coding problem, for example, instead of just giving the answer, you might ask back, okay, what resources have you already consulted? What are the pros and cons of the different approaches you're considering? You're basically fostering self-reliance. This approach, it might feel slower initially, but it builds much stronger, more resilient, and truly self-managing teams in the long run. Michael often uses the analogy of a sports coach. A great coach doesn't run the plays for the players on the field right. They train them, empower them, make adjustments, but they trust the players to execute. Your responsibility shifts from fixing things to enabling the fix in Tume. Navigating team dynamics. The Tuckman model and Scrum Master's role.
Okay, so to truly enable, you really need to understand the natural ebb and flow of how teams develop. Michael often emphasizes the Bruce Tuckman model: forming, storming, norming, performing, and sometimes adjourning. Every team goes through these stages, and it's dynamic. It's not just a straight line. Why is understanding this model so critical for you as a Scrum Master, especially when you're trying to shake off that Scrum Police perception? What can you actually do during these phases?
Understanding Tuckman is absolutely crucial because it gives you a kind of map for team behavior. It helps you anticipate and guide. And this raises an important point for Scrum Masters. Anytime a team member changes, the team needs to hit the reset button and intentionally go back to the forming mode together. This isn't just for brand new teams, it's something you need to be constantly aware of, even with existing ones. Adding or removing just one person really shifts the dynamic.
So a change means consciously going back to forming.
Intentionally, yes. And what's particularly fascinating here is understanding that your job as Scrum Master is to help navigate the team through these stages, especially that often tricky storming phase. That's where internal conflicts, disagreements emerge. If handled correctly, though, it can lead to much stronger collaboration later. Michael points out that the best way for a team to get out of the storming phase is to solve their own problems.
So they solve it, not you stepping in.
Exactly. This is where the Scrum Police temptation comes in strong. If you try to force your way of thinking or dictate processes onto the team during storming or constantly intervene to fix their interpersonal issues, Michael warns they will lose people, they will zone out, and ultimately they won't truly own the solutions or the way forward. You become a disciplinarian, not a guide. Instead, your role is to foster self-organization. You do that by creating psychological safety, which we'll touch on more, and facilitating conversations systems that allow them to work through their conflicts, reach consensus, and emerge stronger, owning their collective path. Maybe you set up a dedicated working session for them to address a recurring conflict, or perhaps coach them on some effective communication techniques.
Okay, so it's about facilitation, not intervention. Beyond Tuckman, Michael also introduces Shu-Ha-Ri, that martial arts analogy for mastery. Shu, learning the basics, following rules precisely, bending rules, experimenting, finding what works in context, and Ri becoming an expert who transcends rules, constantly practicing fundamentals while innovating. This sounds like it applies to both the Scrum Master and the team. Where do you find your team and maybe yourself on this path? How does your approach need to change at each level?
Applying Shu-Ha-Ri to Scrum teams is incredibly insightful, yes. At the Shu level, teams are basically sucking and learning the basics of Scrum. They're diligently following the framework as written. For a Scrum Master at this stage, it means helping the team adhere to the rules, ensuring they understand the purpose behind each event and artifact. But crucially, your role isn't to step in like an agile police hammer saying, "You're doing it wrong, 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 wrong." If you do that, Michael warns, people will just shut down and ignore you.
Right, that reinforces the police image.
Totally. Instead, your role is to patiently guide them through these levels of mastery. Foster an environment where they feel safe to learn, to experiment, and eventually to adapt. Then, at the Ha level, the team gets the why behind the rules and starts to experiment, tailoring Scrum to their specific situation. Here, you encourage calculated deviations. You might ask, what if we tried X instead of Y for our retrospective? And at the Re level, the team is highly self-organizing, continuously optimizing, almost intuitively. Your role then shifts again, maybe to more subtle coaching, challenging them to reach even higher performance levels. Recognizing where your team is allows you to tailor your facilitation and avoid being that rigid rule enforcer.
Can you give an example of that tailoring?
Sure. Let's say Alex's team was still in Shu. She'd gently remind them to keep the daily Scrum under 15 minutes, standard rule following. But if they were clearly in Ha, and maybe regularly exceeding 15 minutes because they were genuinely solving critical problems together during that time, Alex wouldn't just shut it down. She might observe, then ask the team later, "Hey, I notice our daily Scrums are running long but seem productive for problem solving. What if we tried time boxing 5 minutes right after the daily Scrum, just for those who need to stay, to keep the main event focused but still capture that synergy?" See? That embraces their learning and adaptation without just policing the time box.
That makes sense, guiding their adaptation. Now, for a team to truly inspect and adapt one of Scrum's 3 empirical pillars, they absolutely need psychological safety. This is more than just a buzzword. It feels like the bedrock for honest self-assessment, transparent communication, and real improvement. What does this mean for your role in fostering an effective team, and how does its absence push you closer to being the Scrum Police?
As a Scrum Master, you have to actively create and nurture a safe space for your team. It's non-negotiable. To be able to do the inspection, you need psychological safety because we're really inspecting how we're doing with regards to people, relationships, process, and tools. This environment requires both the safety to openly bring up issues, even really difficult ones, like maybe a team member isn't pulling their weight or a technical decision turned out badly, and also the emotional maturity from the rest of the team to hear those issues and actively work to solve them rather than getting defensive or pointing fingers.
Oh, it's safe to speak up and safe to receive feedback.
Exactly. When people feel safe to be vulnerable, transparent about challenges or mistakes, then real inspection can actually happen. And that, in turn, enables genuine adaptation, moving beyond just doing Scrum by the book to actually producing meaningful outcomes without psychological safety. Transparency can become what Michael often calls a career-ending move. Teams will hide bad news, they'll gloss over problems, avoid admitting mistakes. That prevents any real progress and forces the Scrum Master into becoming a detective or, yes, the Scrum Police just trying to uncover what's really happening. Your job is fundamentally to make it safe to fail and safe to learn, not to assign blame. 3, empowering the team, fostering autonomy, and delivering value.
Your fundamental role as Scrum Master is described as being in service to the Scrum team, the product owner, and the organization. This isn't passive, though. It means actively adapting your leadership style, because it does take different styles based on the different kind of teams that you're working with, too. A rigid, one-size-fits-all approach just won't work if you want to empower rather than police. What does this adaptability truly entail for a Scrum Master in practice?
This adaptability is absolutely crucial for avoiding that Scrum Police trap. If we connect this to the bigger picture, a Scrum Master can fluidly take on various stances depending on the need. Sometimes you're training a new team on basic Scrum events. Other times you're mentoring an emerging leader within the team. Maybe you're coaching individuals through difficult conversations, or perhaps you're simply facilitating a really complex discussion to help the group find its own way.
So you wear different hats.
Many different hats. The key is to be highly adaptable, almost like a chameleon, shifting your approach based on the team's maturity, their specific context, their unique needs right now. For instance, a high-performing military team already operating with extreme discipline. They require a very different approach, maybe more focused on subtle coaching, removing organizational blocks than, say, a brand new nonprofit team just starting with Agile. They might need direct training on just how to run a sprint planning session. Your ability to facilitate without dictating, to guide without giving direct answers, is absolutely crucial for enabling that team autonomy and problem solving. It allows you to move away from the taskmaster perception. It's truly about being what the team needs you to be in that moment, not what you think a Scrum Master should always do.
It's also important to remember, and you touched on this, that Scrum isn't the magic bullet for every single project. Michael emphasizes that Scrum is really, really good for complex product development. Where requirements are largely unknown or evolving, and the technology might be uncertain. It thrives in ambiguity. But if you have a simple project, known requirements, established tech stack, Michael's advice is pretty clear. Just do it. You don't need to use Scrum for this. Trying to apply Scrum where it's not needed can just add overhead, friction, frustration, and make the framework feel like bureaucracy to be policed, rather than an enabler. That's a key distinction for a Scrum Master to understand.
Absolutely. And the essence of Scrum's power, especially in those complex situations, lies in its empirical pillars: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. These aren't just abstract concepts. They are the engine of continuous improvement when predictability is low. Think about your own environment right now. Which of these three is the hardest to implement? Sometimes true transparency, like we said, can feel like that career-ending move if there's bad news, especially in cultures where honesty about challenges gets punished. Yet Scrum demands that openness to surface issues quickly so they can actually be addressed.
And what about inspection and adaptation?
Well, what happens if you stray from the original plan? Because doing so will deliver actual value that meets customer needs, even if it means changing course. That's adaptation based on inspection. Or, the really tough one, what if your value prop is wrong? What if the thing you're building isn't actually valuable? These are the uncomfortable questions that constant inspection, like in a sprint review, helps answer. Adaptation then becomes essential, the ability to pivot, change course based on what you learn, even if it means abandoning something you previously planned. This iterative feedback loop, powered by these pillars, is what makes Scrum so powerful in complex spaces. If the Scrum Master tries to enforce a rigid plan instead of embracing this empiricism, they quickly become the police of an outdated approach.
Can you give an example of fostering that?
Sure. Alex's team, they initially struggled with transparently admitting when they'd overcommitted in a sprint. They felt like failures. So Alex created what she called a failure-friendly retrospective exercise. Teams anonymously shared sprint surprises, things that went wrong, or unexpected blockers. This built trust over time and allowed for genuine inspection, which then led to adaptation in how they approached future sprint planning.
A core tenet of Scrum, and really key to showing value beyond just effort, is delivering actual valuable working software, product increment, at the end of each sprint. Meaning the output is tangible, shippable, functional, not delivering plans and not delivering excuses. That's it. The sprint review especially is not meant to be a dog and pony show to demonstrate how busy the team was or what they worked on. It's a vital opportunity to get feedback from real customers and stakeholders, even if that feedback is rough feedback. How do you guide the team to truly embrace this done mindset?
It really boils down to a relentless focus on the definition of done. As a Scrum Master, your constant gentle nudge should be, is it done? Can it be shipped? Is it providing value now? Product backlog refinement, even though it's not a formal Scrum event, is a crucial ongoing non-event event for this. It's where the Scrum team, including the product owner, discusses, breaks down, adds detail to product backlog items, clarifying those acceptance criteria so everyone shares an understanding of what done means for that specific item. The emphasis across all these activities is on delivering truly done work. If you, as the Scrum Master, focus your team on consistently achieving this done state, even with smaller increments, then Stan, the unreasonable executive, will eventually see and appreciate the tangible value. This is real, shippable product, not just promises or plans.
What if a team struggles with calling things done?
That's common. When Alex's team struggled, always finding just one more thing before calling something done, she facilitated a session specifically to tighten their definition of done. She also helped them visualize incomplete work more clearly on their board, making the hidden work transparent and highlighting the actual cost of almost done.
Now, while this isn't the product owner deep dive, it feels incredibly important for you, the Scrum Master, to deeply understand their accountability in enabling the team. The product owner is accountable for maximizing product value and managing that product backlog. This means they must truly know the product, but also the users. And not just what users say they want, but their underlying problems and pain points. For a Scrum Master, why is this deep understanding of the PO's perspective so vital, especially when you're trying to empower the team and maybe deflect external pressures?
This deep understanding of the product owner's world is paramount because they are your primary partner in guiding the team towards delivering value. They set the direction. If we connect this to the bigger picture, customers often come to you with what they think are solutions, not the actual underlying problems. A customer might ask for a big red button when their real problem is, I can't find how to submit my form easily. It's the product owner's job, working closely with the developers, to really understand the problem and then give a solution that the customer really needs, not always wants.
Digging deeper than the surface request.
Exactly. And this connects powerfully to Simon Sinek's golden circle idea. People buy why you're selling things, not what you're selling. The product owner then isn't just a backlog manager shuffling tickets. They need to be a great storyteller, articulating the profound why behind the product. They inspire the team and stakeholders by selling the vision, not just listing features. Your role as Scrum Master is to help the product owner fulfill this critical accountability, maybe coaching them on how to express problems clearly, not just jump to features, and how to articulate that why effectively to the team. Without a clear why, the team often feels like they're just building disconnected tasks, which feeds right back into that Taskmaster dynamic.
Michael looks for product owners with 3 key attributes: availability, knowledge, and authority, specifically the authority to say no. Why are these 3 so rare to find in one person? And why is that third one, the authority to say no, so profoundly important, especially for you, the Scrum Master, in managing those stand-like pressures and stopping the team from feeling like just a feature factory?
It's truly rare because each one presents significant organizational hurdles. Availability means being genuinely present and engaged with the team and stakeholders, which often clashes with other demands on their time. Knowledge requires a deep understanding of the market, the customers, the product vision that takes real dedication and continuous learning. But the authority to say no, especially in organizations where things feel designed by committee, is absolutely crucial. It's about managing the return on investment, ROI, and protecting the team's focus from competing, often lower value demands.
Without that authority.
Without it, the product owner becomes what Michael vividly calls a weekend at Bernie's. Product owner, basically a figurehead with zero availability, zero knowledge, and zero authority. If your product owner is frequently absent, lacks deep product understanding, and simply cannot push back on external demands, Michael says it's guaranteed that Stan, or whoever is making demands, will continue throwing money down the drain. Because the team will just be constantly pulled in different, unproductive directions. Your role as Scrum Master here is to highlight this anti-pattern to the organization, maybe coach the product owner on how to assert this authority if they have it implicitly, or escalate the need for a truly empowered product owner who can make those tough, value-driven decisions. This directly prevents you from becoming the Scrum Police, trying to enforce some chaotic, unmanaged backlog.
Okay, so once you have an empowered PO, or you're working towards it, how does the team then translate that understanding of user problems into actionable work without feeling like they're just churning out tasks for a taskmaster? User stories written as a user, I want something so that outcome, are common. They're great conversation starters, not rigid contracts. The acceptance criteria on the back help clarify what done means. And for effective delivery, stories should ideally be Einvest: independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable. But for Scrum Master trying to escape that Taskmaster label, which of these Einvest criteria, when consistently emphasized, becomes the most powerful lever for genuine team autonomy and value delivery? How?
That's a great distillation. For a Scrum Master looking to move beyond being a Taskmaster, I'd say the V for valuable and the S for small and invest are the most powerful levers. What's most critical for actually delivering within a sprint, especially for a Scrum Master focused on enablement, is ensuring stories are clearly valuable, delivering obvious benefit to the end user, and small enough to realistically be finished within a single sprint. If stories are too big or vague, they inevitably carry over. That leads to frustration, an illusion of progress, and yeah, a feeling that the Scrum Master is just pushing incomplete work along.
So valuable and small prevent carryover and show progress.
Right, and this is where the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, really comes into play. 80% of your value often comes from just 20% of your work or your customers. For you, this means relentlessly helping the team prioritize and truly focus. Hashtag deliver on those highest value, smallest items first. As Michael puts it, you will never be out of work if you can do that because you're consistently facilitating the delivery of tangible impact, not just tracking effort.
How do you help teams see that value and prioritize?
Well, to help teams really prioritize and articulate value, Michael even uses a Shark Tank pitch analogy in his training. It forces teams to really think about what's important and what will hook the stakeholders. They have to articulate the why and the value proposition of each story concisely. The goal isn't to start everything on the list, it's to finish something valuable. If you do story A and it's truly done, then story B gets done, and maybe you run out of time for story C. You still delivered solid done work for A and B. That provides immediate value and feedback. It's this concrete delivery, rather than just managing a long list of half-finished items, that builds trust and fundamentally shifts that perception away from being a taskmaster. 4. Managing external pressure and continuous improvement.
So let's bring it back to Stan, the executive. Imagine him coming to you, agitated. His project is 3 months behind and double the project burn rate. He wants answers. Now, your role as Scrum Master isn't to promise some magic fix, right? Scrum isn't a silver bullet for past failures. Instead, it's about helping the team navigate this intense pressure while staying true to Scrum's empirical principles: transparency, inspection, adaptation. How do you respond to Stan effectively, without becoming a scapegoat or just reverting to being a taskmaster, enforcing impossible deadlines?
Yeah, this situation is a classic, and it really highlights the stark contrast to the tyranny of waterfall, or that illusion of command and control you find in traditional project management, where status reports are always green right up into the last minute, then suddenly everything crashes and burns red. To effectively navigate Stan, Michael stresses empathy first. If you can have that empathy and understanding, you don't have to always agree with him, but you have to understand the situation and the context that the people are coming from. Stan's probably under immense pressure himself. Maybe his job is on the line.
Okay, so understand his pressure first. Then what?
Then your focus as Scrum Master remains steadfast on enabling consistent value delivery. Maintain transparency about progress, or the lack of it, using factual data from your sprints. Facilitate regular inspection of the product and the process. Drive the necessary adaptation based on what you're learning. This means providing real-time, honest data about what's truly done and what's realistically remaining, even if it's uncomfortable news. Because that's what allows for genuine corrective action and realistic forecasting. You're not promising a quick fix. You're offering a structured, transparent path forward based on empirical evidence, not wishful thinking.
Can you give an example of that conversation?
Sure. When Stan came to Alex in a similar situation, she didn't make excuses. Instead, she calmly said something like, "Stan, our last 2 sprints delivered features X and Y, which are working and giving us real feedback. Based on our current measured velocity and the remaining prioritized work, we project we can deliver Z more features by this target date. Given the pressure, what's the absolute highest priority for you right now that would address the most critical business risk?" See how that shifts the conversation? It goes from blame towards prioritization and realistic delivery based on facts.
That's a powerful way to manage expectations upward. Building on that, one of the hardest lessons for anyone, especially a Scrum Master leading a team, is to be okay with making mistakes and get comfortable being uncomfortable. Sometimes you or your team might overthink things, waste precious time trying to find the perfect solution, when maybe just going with the flow, accepting imperfection, and experimenting could have yielded results faster, plus valuable learning. How do you cultivate that mindset, being okay with mistakes in yourself and your team, without seeming reckless or losing control?
This mindset is absolutely fundamental to agility, and it directly counters that Scrum Police approach that seeks rigid perfection and fears deviation. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Michael stresses the immense value of doing a post-mortem report after a significant error or mistake. Not as a blame game, importantly, but as a critical, psychologically safe exercise to figure out why it happened, and then put things in the process so it doesn't happen again. This mindset of continuous learning, especially from failures, is absolutely essential for long-term improvement and moving beyond just being a taskmaster. It reinforces adaptation and builds resilience into how the team works.
So how do you actively cultivate it?
You cultivate it by modeling it yourself, primarily. Openly admit your own learning moments or mistakes. Celebrate smart failures experiments that didn't pan out but provided valuable data. Consistently reinforce that the goal is learning and progress, not flawless execution right out of the gate. This gradually creates a culture where experimentation is valued, and mistakes are seen as opportunities for growth, not something to be hidden or punished.
You're not just a taskmaster in these situations. You're the facilitator of continuous improvement. And one of your most powerful tools for that is the sprint retrospective. What happens if you skip these vital events? And how do you, as a Scrum Master, ensure they are truly impactful for growth rather than just becoming a venting session or a long list of complaints nobody acts on?
Skipping sprint retrospectives is a critical error, really. Michael observes that learning gets lost really quickly when teams don't take that time to reflect regularly. Also, teams miss a chance to celebrate the wins together, which is so vital for morale and motivation. People need to acknowledge progress, and if you're always focusing just on the negatives, the problems during discussions, you're not going to see the positives. That just leads to burnout and a lack of motivation to improve.
So the aim isn't just fixing problems.
No, the primary aim of a retrospective is not solely fixing problems, but also consciously amplifying the good that happened. Celebrate successes, identify effective practices, and intentionally decide how to carry them forward. Crucially, it's about consciously choosing maybe just one thing to do different in the upcoming sprint rather than trying to tackle a huge list that often leads to overwhelm and nothing actually changing. You, as the Scrum Master, facilitate this. Guide the conversation away from blame and towards constructive solutions. Ensure everyone has a voice. Make sure any action items are tangible, small, and ideally assigned or owned for the very next sprint.
What if a team hasn't done one in a while?
If you haven't done one in a while, Michael says it's a good idea to restart those. They are such a strong indicator of a team's health, their commitment to growth, and their ability to self-organize. Yes, it takes time to conduct them effectively, but the long-term effectiveness and self-sufficiency they build are absolutely invaluable. Alex, for instance, used a rose-bud-thorn retrospective format to ensure both successes, rose, and challenges, thorn, were discussed, plus ideas for improvement, bud. And she made sure the team committed to only one actionable improvement per sprint, which really boosted their success rate and buy-in.
This journey then, becoming an effective Scrum Master, moving from that perceived Scrum Police to a true enabler, it's undeniably a long-term play, isn't it? It's about being deliberate, intentional in shifting your approach, your mindset, not just applying new labels to old behaviors. This isn't just about doing Scrum by the book, but consistently producing outcomes and delivering tangible, valuable product increments. It feels like a deep cultural shift.
It absolutely is. And this shift, while incredibly rewarding, isn't always easy for everyone involved. What's fascinating here is Michael's rather blunt observation that when organizations truly embrace these changes, the radical transparency, the shared accountability, the relentless focus on done work, iterative delivery, well, people will leave. Because you cannot hide out in this environment.
What?
It exposes inefficiencies, it demands vulnerability, and it can be deeply uncomfortable for those accustomed to more traditional, less transparent ways of working.
That for those who stay.
But for those who stay, those who embrace the accountability and the focus on delivery, the rewards are immense. You see high-performing teams emerge, consistent value flowing to customers, and a truly agile, resilient organization that learns to adapt to change rather than constantly resisting it. Your commitment to this long-term play, to enabling this environment, is really what differentiates a true enabling Scrum Master from someone just acting as the Scrum Police.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's quickly remember the key shifts we covered to help you move from Scrum Police to an enabling Scrum Master. First, it's about redefining your stance, fostering true conversations, focusing on context, embracing Scrum values like extreme courage, and understanding accountabilities over rigid roles. Second, it's about navigating team dynamics using models like Tuckman and Shu-Ha-Ri, guiding teams to solve their own problems while ensuring that crucial psychological safety. Third, we explored how to empower your team and your product owner to prioritize effectively and deliver tangible value, really understanding the why for your customer and focusing on getting to done. And finally, we discussed effectively managing that external pressure, like Stan's demands, and committing to continuous improvement through transparent feedback loops and powerful retrospectives.
And our core takeaway for you today, the one thing to really hold on to, is that the most impactful shift for a Scrum Master is cultivating specific behaviors and mindsets that empower your team to solve their own problems and consistently deliver value. So your one actionable item from this deep dive: in your very next team interaction, maybe it's the daily scrum tomorrow or a refinement session or your next retrospective consciously pivot. Instead of providing answers, ask questions that guide your team to discover their own solutions, or perhaps amplify a past success they can build on. Help them identify just one thing that can change or amplify. Then just observe what happens.
We really hope this deep dive has provided you with valuable insights. If it resonated with you, please do like this deep dive and/or subscribe to this channel. We'd also love for you to post any questions you have for Michael Vizdos, or perhaps share your own one actionable takeaway in the comments below. He's genuinely committed to acting as your accountability partner to help you get this done.
And if you want to dig deeper into any of the resources or concepts mentioned in this, or frankly, any deep dive, you can learn more in the show notes below.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Implementing Scrum Unscripted. As with all the episodes within this podcast series, YouTube recommends a specific episode just for you that you should listen to next, along with my next episode in this series. So please select one of the two choices on your screen right now to continue learning more about a topic about implementing Scrum that's been tailored just for you. Focus, #deliver.